Greetings and salutations. My name is Kimra Minuti, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Gaia Soars. This week, we're going to be talking about love and fear. I got a quote here that I found on a cool meme somewhere on Facebook. It says, "If you choose to live in fear, you will create a life that presents you with fearful experiences. Choose love over fear." Now, I find that this is blah blah words. I find that this is a very important conversation to be having right now on the eve of the Scorpio full moon and the upcoming triple retrograde of Jupiter, Venus, and I believe it's Saturn, all within about 3 days of each other coming up next week. So it's really important for us to have the conversation of what it is that we fear in our lives. Because right now, the curriculum that Saturn is putting into play is saying something to the effect of, are you tired of doing the same old thing over and over again and expecting your life to be different? Are you tired of lying to yourself about what's wrong with your life so that you are not able to step into what you actually want? Are you busy being obtuse about what you actually need to do to feel better? Okay, there's a lot of themes right now surrounding self-love, looking at the truth, unearthing secrets, and finding out where you're supposed to actually be going in life. And if you're not doing that, if you're not taking this opportunity to dive deep into your psyche and into your soul to understand what your purpose is on this planet and how you're supposed to affect change for yourself and others, then you are going to be feeling, what's a polite term for this? There isn't one. You're going to be feeling fucked up. So I am going to talk about what we can do to strengthen our intuition this week, because that's extremely important. In the next 5 months, it is to your advantage to become more spiritual. And what do I mean by spiritual? I don't mean get up and go to church. I don't mean become a yogi guru. I don't mean become vegan. That's not what I mean. When I say become more spiritual, I would like for you to consider falling in love with yourself. Okay? Because when you're in love with yourself, you're in alignment. And what makes your life hard is all of the parts of you that are not in love with yourself. The reason that I'm able to give you this perspective is because I've studied the law of attraction in depth for going on 3 years now. And it has been quintessential in my expansion as an individual, as a parent, as a career individual, and with my own physical healing and spiritual healing. If I hadn't learned the law of attraction and then learned Reiki, I wouldn't have been able to affect the healing in my body from my car accident. So for those of you who haven't heard any of the previous podcast episodes, I was in a car accident in 2017 that herniated 3 discs in my neck, 3 discs in my lower back, gave me bulges and arthritis in the rest of my back, and arthritis in my shoulders, my hips, and my knees. I couldn't walk for extended periods of time, and I couldn't sit for almost any period of time for the first 6 months of my recovery from the car accident. So I was either laying down all day or standing up all day, because those were the only 2 comfortable positions. I was in 20 out of 10 pain for a year, and I had a concussion that was severely affecting my ability to control my emotions, my thoughts, and even configure words and sentences and relate to time. So it was a very traumatic event. Now, when you hear me now, you're just like, I would have never thought that happened to you. And I'm like, yeah, but it was one of the worst and the best things that ever happened to me, because in that accident, I was able to finally put down my fear of everything, because I had no control of my emotions. So if I was afraid, I was just afraid. Like, I had the worst PTSD from this accident, to the point where I remember for July 4th, people were setting off fireworks, and I was like in a closet hunkered down because I felt like people were shooting at me, and it was fireworks, and I knew it was fireworks, but my body was incapable of dealing with the overstimulation because of how thin my perception, my awareness was. Like, I don't know really how to explain that. I consider emotional pain to be akin to being burnt alive. So you have raw skin where that has no sort of protective layer on it. It's just sinew and exposed nerve and muscle. And that's the kind of like psychic sort of agony that I kind of dealt with for about 8 years, where everything was just like raw and ripped open. And in the process of that, I was reforming myself and losing fear of everything. Because up until then, I'd been afraid of who I was, what I was doing, how I was going to go about it. And I was afraid that I was wasted potential. I was afraid that I was not getting it together. I would never amount to anything, and that everything that I had tried had failed, and I was a failure. Like, I was afraid that I would never come out of this, what looked like a never-ending tailspin of despair. And I am so thankful to sit here and say that that's not the case. I'm fucking fine. Not only am I fine, I'm better than fine. I'm in the best place I've been emotionally in my entire life. This year I will be 39 years old, and I feel better than I ever have, to be honest. I'm able to bike ride and walk and squat and pick up things and clean and breathe and exercise, and these were things that in 2017 I absolutely could not do. Like, these were things that were considered to me exercise. People would be like, you need to exercise. I was like, do you know that me walking to my car right now is so exhausting, all 100 feet of it, that I will have to take a 4-hour nap? Like, and you want me to do what? Exercise? Yeah, all right. So suffice it to say that I needed to have a perspective shift in order to affect the healing necessary for me to be talking to you in this balanced and unconditional loving manner, right? So when we talk about love and fear, first off, I've heard somebody say that love and fear are not opposites on the emotional scale. And I wanted to point out to them that that's a duh. So I don't know who wasn't sure about that, but let's have a conversation about the emotional scale. If you've never looked at one, I want you to Google an emotional scale. Why is this important? Because on the spectrum of emotions, there are many emotions that would be considered on the negative side and many emotions on the positive side. And so you want to know, what are the gradations in between all of these emotions, from the negative to the positive? The reason being that if you are a person who has not had good emotional health most of your life, which if you live in the United States, I'm going to say 90% of us, when you start to experience emotions for the first time, you're gonna be fucked up with how many different levels of emotions there are. That's one. And number two, because you're previously not used to feeling an emotion, when you do start to feel an emotion, the sheer intensity of that emotion is scary and overwhelming and can keep you caught in a place that you don't need to stay. Okay. So, one of the important things that I like to talk about with my empaths and my highly sensitive people is that you are supposed to have a whole gradation of emotions because your emotions are your indicator of whether or not you are operating in a good place. So imagine that you have a navigation system and your emotions are the signals to whether you're going to go left or whether you're going to go right, whether you need to go further, whether you need to stop, whether you need to slow down, whether you need to speed up. That's what your emotions are actually for. So when you ignore your emotions or you block your emotions out, you do yourself a disservice because now you don't have a navigation system. Now you're just running roughshod all over the place and you don't know what the fuck you're doing. That's one. Number two, um, when you are actually interpreting the emotions, right? There's variations on that too. Some emotions are specifically your emotions. Some emotions are related to your trauma, and some emotions are related to things your parents said. Some emotions are related to the location that you're actually physically in. Some locations are related to passing emotional areas. So, and then there's the emotions that are related absolutely not at all to you that have to do with the collective consciousness. And if you're a sensitive person or an empath, you will be sensitive to other people's emotions. And so that brings us to the conversation of how do I deal with A, my own emotions, and B, how do I know if the emotions that I'm feeling are mine or someone else's? Hmm. A lot of the times you don't even realize that you're listening and feeling other people's emotions. So that's part of why I am talking about this because for the longest, I didn't realize that I was feeling not only other people's emotions, but like to a certain extent in my spirit path, not to a certain extent, in my spirit path, I am tied to the elements of nature. So specifically air, water, and fire. I have very little ground or very little earth in my chart, but the main elements that move me are earth, water, and fire. And so those elements help me understand how to deal with the spirit world, and those elements also give me information from the spirit world. So the elemental nature of my spirit life is is what allows me to gain knowledge and wisdom from different avenues. Okay, so people are like, how are you an intuitive guidance a person or practitioner, excuse me? Well, because I get a lot of signals from the spirit world, like constantly. Like it's just part of my normal everyday life. My normal everyday life comes with messages from spirit sometimes all day, like sometimes just like never endingly, and it will come in the form of different things. So this week's podcast, we're going to talk about intuition and how you can strengthen your intuition. Part of that is letting go of fear, because when you're in fear, you can't hear your spirit. When you're in fear, you can't trust your spirit. And when you're in fear, you are not acting in love. And so, therefore, what you're about to do is probably not to your best advantage because you're not acting from a point of love and unconditional support and, divine intervention. So, now, I just want to take a quick break because this is a podcast and we do play music, and we're going to do a mystery track because I enjoy these mystery tracks. It makes it kind of fun. And when we come back from our mystery track, we will dive back into strengthening your intuition, how love is going to help you let go of fear, and why it's to your best advantage to apply this method right now, especially when you're talking about like a full moon, right? Full moons are for releasing that which does not serve us. So, back in a flash. This is Kimra Minuti. You're listening to Gaia Soars here on Magazine Radio.
You're listening to Magazine.today. Don't forget, if you want to get in touch with us, go to the live chat function on Magazine.today on your phone or on your computer. The live chat function will pop up. You can send us a message, pictures, whatever you want. Easiest way to communicate to us any time of the day or night. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Magazine.today.
Blood in the water, I know that it won't last. My light is brighter, and I hope that it will last. You think that it's directions, the ones you never choose. It's the way that you're facing determines if you lose. Fortunes that you made, choices that you gave. You want it, you want it. Now I'm like the sun, ordering no one. You got it. And I love you until we get by. And I love you till we get by. It's only when you want to bear me all your fruit. It's a labor of love, and honey, I choose you. And I'm picking up the pieces, the ones that we don't have. It's the putting it together that's making me sad. You're the reason why I can't touch the sky. I want it, I want it. And I am like the sun, revolving everyone. I got it. And I love you until we get by. Baby, I love you. You know that we will make it by.
You're tuned in to Magazine.today.
And we're back. That was Until We Get By from the B-Sides album. Hope you enjoyed that. It's a pretty great track. So, back to our conversation on intuition, love, and fear. My name is Kimra Minuti, and you're listening to Gaia Soars here on Magazine Radio. Before we dive back into the podcast, I wanted to take a moment and share with you a piece of poetry that was given to me by our planet. So, for those of you who are unaware, I published a poetry book, an inspirational poetry book related to, the best way to describe it is to look at the poems in terms of things that were channeled by me from source, from spirit, in an effort to inspire me not to give up. So in the first section of the podcast, we were talking about how I was in a car accident. I was in excruciating pain, and I had a lot of reasons to not feel good from a physical and a mental place. And luckily, my guides at that time came to me, and I had been asking them to quote unquote speak to me, like words. And that's how I ended up writing my poetry book, because the words that were then spoken to me were translated into poetry. And this week, it seems fitting to me that I was gifted with another piece of poetry from Spirit, and I thought it would be apropos to share it with all of you today. And I don't even have a real working title for it, so you're just go with it. All right. It says, Gaia spoke to me. Little Gaia, glowing bright, from the darkness deep inside, from the soil she rose to see all the beauty of physical reality, glistening, pulsing, gleaming bright, rainbow crow wings adorned her might. Grasping my hand warmly, she grew from child size right up to me, staring green pools of loving eternity. Straight into my heart, her soul hugged me. As her spirit whispered, Sister, we are free. My soul wept in joy at the finality. Now to stand tall in our divinity, unite as one, in love for all humanity. So that was my new poem. If you guys could help me out and send me a chat that explains to me what kind of thoughts you had on that poem, or even a name. If you guys want to help me out, let's name the poem together. That'd be great. I'm horrible at naming things. So now let's talk about intuition, love, and fear. What are some ways that you can strengthen your intuition? This is a question that I get a lot from people. What are some ways that you can strengthen your intuition is also the same question as, how do I get in touch with my spirit guides? Okay? So the first thing that I want you to understand is that your spirit guides are always trying to talk to you. When I'm telling you, they are always trying to get your attention. It's just that you, in your fear or your lack of comprehension of this fact, you're not able to connect with them because you think that there's a right or a wrong way to connect with your spirit guides. That's one. Or you might be afraid to connect with your spirit guides because you weren't taught that you have guides that are friendly. You might have some sort of background where anything outside of God is the devil, and so therefore you're not going to reach out to your spirit guides, which means then they can't help you. Okay, so that's one thing. Then there's just when you have a lot of trauma and pain and fear and anger in your body, it's very difficult to hear your spirit guides, okay? And I'm saying hear very loosely. We're not talking about external ears. We're talking about hearing with your heart, because your spirit guides, that's where they are. They're not in your mind, they're in your heart. And the reason you want spirit guides from your heart is because they are aligned with your divine plan and your ultimate highest good. So whenever you want to start a situation where you're asking your spirit guides to come into your life and communicate with you, and this is a great time to do so because remember, we are dealing with Gemini and communication and Pluto retrograde, which is going deep to find who you can communicate with, right? So the first thing we want to do is invoke universal law and ask that only beings of the highest order of love, light, and unconditional beauty and truth and love interact with you. That's one. You don't want anybody who is not unconditionally loving you dealing with you and giving you advice, period. That's not how we do things around here. I mean, if you are wanting to do some darker shadow aspect work, that's different. But you should call on your personal individual spirit guides first and ask them to surround you in unconditional love and protection, and then you can go down those murkier, darker paths to figure out things that you are trying to learn. Okay, so I don't want people to think that there is like, I don't believe in bad or good. I believe that things just are. And there are darker aspects and lighter aspects to everyone and everything. And in order for you to become a balanced and integrated individual, you have to know what is happening on your dark side. You can't just like sweep it under the rug. Okay, so this is what brings us back to the conversation of strengthening your intuition and the curriculum that is out in the universe right now, which is one of truth seeking and healing your trauma so that you do not repeat the places that you have been prior to now. That way you can evolve and expand into the being that you were meant to be always, okay, prior to being lumped up by the world. All right. And in my poem, right, it says, grasping my hand warmly, she grew up from child size right up to me. And this poem was really a meditation that I had. It was a vision that I saw in meditation where I was standing in this most beautiful field. Like, it was just such a beautiful field, and I was like looking out across like the whole land. Like, imagine watching Lord of the Rings, right? And you know, they're standing on the top of like a mountain region, and then you see a bowl of green verdant fields, and the light is all golden and, you know, glowy, like that dream aspect. It's like really pretty and soft and vibrant. Everything is very vibrant. And in my meditation / vision, this is when like Gaia just appeared to me. And at first she was like a small child, and when she grabbed my hand, she grew up and looked me straight in the eye. And that's when she was like, sister, we are free. And it felt so good in that moment, because if you have inner child trauma, which almost everybody does, almost everybody, so don't feel bad. If you have inner child trauma, until you've addressed the trauma from your childhood, you're not really free to grow your spirit into a teenager and then into an adult. And it's important for you to visualize your inner self and then love that inner self, and then let her grow or let him grow into an adult so that they can join you at the phase in your life that you are now, so that you can be integrated and balanced and whole and able to do all the things that you are needed to do. Like, it's important for you to accomplish XYZ tasks in the world, and if you're not accomplishing them, then you don't feel good, because you're not in your path, you're not in your divine soul plan, you're not doing what your soul was created to do, or what you decided you wanted your soul to do this lifetime, however you want to look at it, right? So it is a conversation that we will probably have in another podcast about balancing your masculine and your feminine energy, one, at a child level, and then growing the masculine and the feminine energy up to an adult phase, so that you have a fully integrated, healed, and unharmed adult functioning in your life, as opposed to a broken inner child trauma and a half-grown teen and maybe a totally underdeveloped masculine side, or maybe a totally underdeveloped feminine side. I have noticed that when I deal with clients, the majority of my females who have dealt with sexual trauma, which is almost all of them, their masculine side is overdeveloped, but their feminine side is like crippled. Okay. And that's typical for me and what I understand when it comes to sexual trauma, because you have to use your masculine to survive life until you're safe again. And only when you're safe can you then relax into the true feminine nature or aspect of who you are and learn to nurture and heal yourself. So it's very important if you've dealt with any sort of difficulties in your life that you start to take a look at addressing them, because this is going to set the tone for the next about 30 years of your life. So if you're not feeling the need to dig in and fix things, or not even so much fix things, just unearth them so that they're not dragging you down anymore. You know, like, how much weight do you want to carry that is not yours? How much of other people's drama and pain and suffering do you want to keep lugging around? Like, are you really as happy as you think you are, or are you really happy being delusional? I want you to really ask yourself that. Because if you're happy being delusional, then go ahead and see how the rest of this plans out. I bet you that won't last long. I bet you by the middle of the summer, you'll be wishing you had decided not to be delusional. Or you'll just be in the throes of an emotional breakdown. One or the other. Up to you. You know? So, this is such an interesting time span for humanity. We're in a place where there are mutable shifts, where now you have the opportunity to shift your thought patterns, but your physical reality is not going to be so giving and so flexible. So you have to learn how to apply the things that your trauma taught you. Like, people give their trauma more credit in terms of defining their personality than they do give it credit for the tools that it allows you to use. Most sexual trauma survivors are some of the most resilient people I've ever seen in my freaking life. Like, strong, resilient warriors. And they don't give themselves any credit for any of that, because mentally, the trauma has been telling them that they're not worth anything, and that's so far from the truth. And it's extremely important. Trauma allows you certain skills and tools that other people who had great lives don't have. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's a point of healing, that you can appreciate your trauma for the lessons that it gave you. It is a point of healing, and it's important to forgive yourself for whatever you dealt with, whatever it is, because holding yourself in the bonds of judgment is how you end up staying stuck forever. And you don't want to be stuck, right? That's why you're listening to this podcast, because you're like, gee, I was hoping that I could become unstuck. So I thought I would listen to stuff that would help trigger me to understand how to move, right? So, strengthening your intuition. One of the important things that you can do to strengthen your intuition is listening. You have to be able to take the time to listen. That's one. So first, I said earlier, like, you're going to ask for guidance from those from your highest good. That's one, right? So you're going to be like, hey, spirit guide, I would like for you to talk to me. I would like for you to contact me. I would like for you to show me a sign. And you can even specify it. You can specify and go, hey, spirit guide, I know this is our first time interacting. I'm a little unsure as to what to do, but I'm really eager to connect with you. could you please show me a sign that I will recognize? So can you show me a sign that, I don't know, send me 3 blue butterflies in a row to let me know that you are with me. And you can do that. And then your goal, after you've stated that to your spirit guides, is to be open to receiving the 3 butterflies. Okay? Because it's a 2-part process. You can ask for your guides to interact with you, but you have to be open to receiving what it is your guides are going to show you. And if you specify the sign, you have less chance of missing it. Okay? Initially, what I find with a lot of people is that they are unaware that their spirit is guiding them, or they're not acknowledging that their spirit is guiding them. Well, when you don't acknowledge that you're getting guidance from your spirit, you decrease your ability to get guidance. You will still get the guidance, but it'll just be harder to recognize. It'll be harder for you to understand it, or you just be like, I don't know why my guides never talk to me. And I'd be like, well, they do talk to you. You're just expecting them to speak to you in a manner that other people do. Okay? And then the other thing is with your guides is you have to understand that initially, when you first start interacting with them, it's not going to be like a full-on conversation like what you hear me having with you right now. It's not like that. Everybody is going to experience their guides differently. And depending on what your spiritual gifts are, that's going to depend on how you experience your guides. Some people get dreams. Some people see visions. Some people smell things. Some people feel things. Some people get messages from animals. Some people get sensations, or some people just get a word or an image will pop into their mind. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can receive messages from spirit. There is a way of classifying the way you receive spiritual messages. And so there are different ways. So like clairaudience is the faculty of perceiving as if by hearing what is inaudible. So clairaudience is when you have the tendency to hear messages from spirit, but they're not really like nobody else can hear them. Let me just put it like that. You hear messages from spirit that nobody else can hear, which until you realize that this is clairaudience, people are just going to tell you you're fucking crazy. So just FYI with that. It's also a symbol or a sign of your empathy. Usually as a child, you'll hear people calling you from other rooms, and then you'll go into the room and there's nobody there. That's my whole childhood. It's my whole childhood. I hear people calling me all the time. So clairaudience is one of my top ways that I hear spirit. I'm extremely audio sensitive. I call myself an audiophile because I absorb people's traumas through their voices. It can be frustrating. So I don't do a lot of phone calls with people because of my audio sensitivity. And I actually only do paid phone calls, to be honest. Like if you're calling me, you're usually paying me for advice. Or I actually know and love you, like you're my sister or my brother or someone that I've known for like 10 years or something like that. Like you're an actual friend who is allowed free advice, you know? So that's what happens with me. So I'm very sensitive to people's sounds, which is why when I do this podcast, I try to make it as soothing as possible because I get easily disrupted and irritated by cacophony of people's thoughts and their thoughts and their emotions not being in alignment with their physical reality. Like, it becomes very wonky. Anyway, so there's a bunch of different type of clairs. There's clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience, There's a bunch of different ones. There's some for your smells and tastes and fingers. Like there's all different type of stuff. And also clairaudience is sometimes you'll get messages through music or songs or stuff like that. So oftentimes my spirit guides will give me a message in the terms of a musical song. Like almost all the time. Like almost all the time. They'll just play me music, and it doesn't matter where I am either. They'll play it on my phone, or they'll play it on like the loudspeaker at the gas station, or they'll play it in the loudspeaker of like wherever I am. A song that I need to remind me of something will just show up. It's really fascinating. It's really, really fascinating. So you can Google the different types of clairs. I call them the clairs. What type of clairs are there? Clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance. There's a really long list of clairs, but they are the different ways that you experience spirit and source and psychic ability. So if you look into that in your own life, it will help you better understand how to connect with your spirit guides, because they will show you certain things from that perspective. So for me, my top three are clairaudience and claircognizance. And I think clairsentience are like my top three mix of intuition pieces. And then clairvoyance is starting to increase for me, but I'm not really that visual. I'm late to the visual game. So let's take a quick break. We will be back. This is Gaia Soars. My name is Kimra Minuti. I am your hostess with the mostest. And we're going to take a quick break with another mystery track. Back in a flash.
You're listening to Magazine.today. Don't forget, if you want to get in touch with us, go to the live chat function on Magazine.today on your phone or on your computer. The live chat function will pop up. You can send us a message, pictures, whatever you want. Easiest way to communicate to us any time of the day or night. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Magazine.today.
That was Her Logical Mind, another awesome mystery track, and this one's encoded in 432 Hz to help open up your heart frequency. My name is Kimra Minuti, and you're listening to Gaia Soars. Now, earlier this week, I had a message from Spirit, so I'm just going to read it to you because it's typed down and I happen to have it available. Sometimes there is a need to be able to explain everything to everyone, but that is not necessary. Let your actions do the speaking and be silent. Hold your tongue. If you are in a place of calm, hold the line. Those who are in the throes of upheaval and purge need you to be steadfast. Do not look at them with disgust. Gaze upon them with compassion, but do not engage. The time of truth and transparency is now. Summon the courage to throw off the shackles of other people's opinions. The only truth that matters is your inner truth. You are being asked to not be distracted. Face the emotions once and for all and heal. Take the bull by the horns and communicate your hurt so you can let it the fuck go. Stop waffling. When you don't choose, you lose. Everything is medicine, and it is for you to conquer your shadows in order to rise even higher. The goal is balance the shadow with the light and unite both into one empowered, multi-dimensional being. Wow. I really enjoy my channeled messages because I know they're not me. And I know that sounds really silly, but when I read my own channeled messages, I'll look at them and I'll be like, wow, that was deep, Kimra. That was really deep. And then I'll think to myself, yeah, it's totally not me. That's totally my celestial posse stepping in right now to to facilitate a message for others, okay? And that's what it means to be a divine channel. When you're able to get out of the way of the message and just spit it out. And that's not actually something easy to do. It gets easier with practice. So I guess that should bring us to the conversation of intuition being similar to a muscle that you have to learn how to flex in order for it to be strengthened, that you can get better use and guidance from it, right? So how do you strengthen your intuition? We've been talking about that from multiple different avenues. One of the things that you can do is to focus inward. So try meditation. If you can't do meditation on your own, try a guided meditation until you get more calm, and then you can just meditate in silence on your own. If you can't meditate in silence, that's okay. You can do moving meditations. People with high key anxiety, let me just throw this out there. If you have really high anxiety, it is best for you to do moving meditations, because you have to be able to throw off the energy of your anxiety, and exercise and movement will help balance you and push out that traumatic energy that is trapped in your body causing your anxiety. Okay? If you understand that all illness is related to energy, that's why it's called dis-ease, because you are not at ease with yourself. There is a trauma or an emotion that is trapped in a part of your body that is evidencing a physical manifestation of pain, illness, hurt, or whatever the case may be. So as a Reiki practitioner, an energy healer, and an intuitive channel, for me, when I hear people complaining about certain illnesses or difficulties, I immediately think of what trapped trauma might be related to that illness. So it's really important, guys, to recognize that your emotions, when they are not flowing freely, can become trapped trauma in your body that will turn into illness. Period. And if you can find a manner to release the trapped trauma, you can also release the illness. How do I know this? I was in a car accident. Remember we talked about that at the beginning of this podcast? I was unable to do a lot of physical movement for almost 2 years. I am now able to do physical movement. Like, I bought a used bicycle at the beginning of this coronavirus pandemic thing so I could go bike riding because my knees are really weak from the accident. So I'm strengthening my knees by doing what? Riding a bike and getting out there and just exercising because it's different than walking. And so in order for me to retrain my body to strength, as I lack physical strength due to disuse of muscles over an extended period of time related to illness, right? So I use moving meditations to help me move the trapped trauma from my accident and my life out of my body so that I'm able to allow more healing energy from the universe back into my body. That's how I'm able to overcome a lot of the physical pain that I dealt with for so long. And the emotional pain too, because truthfully, physical pain is nothing in comparison to emotional pain. Emotional pain is what kills people. Emotional pain is why people commit suicide. And so that sucks. Suicide is not something that I planned on talking about today, but is one that I'm low-key worried about because the universe doesn't really believe in suicide. I'm gonna just kind of play with this with you guys, and you guys work with me while I'm kind of puzzling it out because I'm honestly channeling this. The universe does not like suicide. The universe sent many light workers to help with youngsters committing suicide. Why? Because the children that are born in the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s are extremely sensitive, and they are nothing like those of us born in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. They come with less BS trauma entrapped in their souls. Like, they're more open to receiving help from the universe and being in tune with the universe, and they're all kind of partially already listening to the universe. Like, so when one of these universal children, and you are considered a universal child, when one of the universal children gets so disconnected from source to the point that they feel that suicide is the only option left to them, the universe does not rejoice. The universe is crushed in sorrow because that is not your purpose. Your purpose is to be a light unto the world. Your purpose is to be a beacon of love to others. Your purpose is to come and experience the sheer joy of the physicality of this planet and to experience the beauty that is this planet so that you can add to the value of the collective, not to come and be destroyed by it, to be destroyed by the experiences here, to feel so disconnected from source that you don't feel there's another way other than to exit this planet. And that's really sad. It's something that's bothered me most of my life, and it's something that I've actively worked with people. I used to do a suicide hotline. Used to help on a suicide hotline in college when I was getting my degree in psychology, and I have the tendency to know when people are like close to dying or close to like emotional death, where that last flicker of internal flame is about to just snuff out, and I am blessed with the skill of being able to blow a little flame, blow a little energy your way to keep you from snuffing yourself out or snuffing out completely from lack of love, so that you can make it a little longer. It's part of my purpose to not turn a blind eye to those who I can see are on the brink of spiritual and soul collapse. I don't know, for me it's evident. It's easy to see when someone is so sad. It's so easy for me to see when someone is so sad to the point of suicide, and it's something that hurts me in a way that it probably shouldn't. Like, it hurts me in a way that is not what I guess normies or 3D people would call normal. Like, I'm super affected by people who are on the brink of killing themselves or in emotional distress. But that's why I'm a healer. That's why I'm a healer, because I see that someone is hurt and I want to help them, and I have the tools necessary to walk them back from that brink of hurting themselves. And I know that a lot of people are in that point right now, and I guess that's why I'm talking about it. This pandemic has put people to the test, and we're only really at the beginning of it. It's not going to get easier here just because it's summer. Like, it's not going to get easier. It's going to get a little bit better because the summertime has less flu-like symptoms in terms of symptomology, and COVID-19, make no mistake, is a flu. It's an upper respiratory infection, it's an upper respiratory virus. So in the northern hemisphere, we'll get a little bit of a break, I believe, I hope, if people continue to social distance and maintain, and take precautions. But come fall, that's going to go back down, I believe, because as the temperature changes, it's going to lend itself to more of that sort of seasonal illness. And I feel that there will be spikes in the fall, definitely, for this. And in my capacity as a healer, as an intuitive guide, as an energy healer, as a channel, I want you, the listener, to know that I am here for you. If you're on that brink, on the precipice of killing yourself, first off, please don't do it. Please, 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 please. Please don't kill yourself. It's not the only way. There are better ways. And there's someone who is willing to listen to you. I'm willing to listen to you. There are means to get around this, and your spirit guides are so against you completing that. So please do not. Okay? I feel that this brings me to the conversation of other means that spirit will contact you with. Birds are often a means for the spirit to communicate with you. And if you see a bird, if you see animals in general while you're trying to figure out something spiritually, you should pay attention to them. Because animals in general are more tied into the spirit realm than humans. Because we don't listen well, okay? I'm just gonna, full disclosure, humans are shitty listeners. We don't talk to spirit very well because we haven't been practicing talking to spirit. Now, people will say, oh, but I go to church and I pray all the time. Yes, you pray all the time, but do you listen for God to give you an answer? Probably not, because I hear a lot of Christians cry and complain that God isn't listening to them. It's not true. You won't shut up and listen to God. If you would shut up and listen to God, then God would lead you where you needed to go. That's what your intuition does. Your intuition leads you where you need to go. But in order to use your intuition, you have to be A, listening, B, trusting, C, in a quiet space inside yourself. It's not just like you have to be in a quiet space in your room. It just means that internally you're in a quiet space because your spirit guides speak very quietly. And oftentimes, if you're not listening, they'll just send you something else to quote unquote distract you. That distraction is usually a message. Okay, so people are like, oh, I can't ever get my spirit guides to communicate with me. Well, what animals did you see today? Because I bet you $20 that was a message from your spirit guides that you just didn't even know you were supposed to pay attention to at all. Like, did you know that cats are your psychic protectors? So if you are living somewhere and then a cat has a litter of kittens in your backyard, instead of being pissed off about it, you might want to consider that there is ample psychic attack coming your way. That you just need a buffer of extra little spirit posse people. Okay, so I call my spirit guides and I call them my celestial posse, right? And when I get really amped up and like I get into like my ghetto black people moments where, because I'm a black person, I'll call them my squad. I'll be like, squad, right? Because I get real amped up. I'll be like, squad, you're amazing. You totally came through for me. Everything that you said happened and it came out better than before. Like, oh, thank you, squad. Right? So your celestial posse is literally like limitless, guys. You don't have just like 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, or you might, maybe you have less. For me, my celestial posse is like 150 people and like 300 animals. Like, it's crazy the amount of spirit crap I have just kind of floating around me. And at first, I used to not really understand all of it. So, for instance, spirit animals, right? So spirit animals are signs from your guides, and they're also a way for you to protect yourself and for you to learn something, okay? And you won't always have the same spirit animal guides. Like, your spirit animal guides will change. I didn't know that when I first started this process, and I was like, is it normal that I'm getting all of these different messages from animals, and then like every 3 or 4 months it'll be like a whole new set of animals? Like, what's up with that? I was like, is that normal? Well, first off, throw normal out the window when it comes to the spirit world. Ain't shit that's normal. So if you're talking about spirit, everything in it is crazy. So just throw it out there. No big deal. And then when you start to look at who the messengers are, or where the messengers are, or the timing of day. So for instance, I am tied to elemental and nature spirits. So I get a lot of my messages from animals. Not like an animal will walk up to me and talk to me and be like, hey, Kimra, I'm a cat. I'm here to spiritually protect your psychic attacks. No, that's not what they're doing. I will be minding my business, right? I'm minding my business. I'm going outside. I'm going to go smoke. And it's 3 o'clock in the morning or some crazy ass time. And I am sitting in my car smoking, and lo and behold, 2 deer come running across my path. Well, I live in a residential area with 70,000 people. Why the fuck are there 2 deer running across my path? That's a sign. And see, those are the things that people don't, like, you don't give yourself credit for having had a contact from spirit. Like, you just go, oh, 2 deer ran across my path. It was really interesting, but and you don't pay it any attention. And in that moment, you miss the freaking message from your spirits. Period. Like, that was it. That was your message. You were over here like la 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 la. You missed the whole message. So that leads me to wanting you guys to understand that to strengthen your intuition, you have to know when to research things. Like, if something seems #odd or weird or crazy, right? Those are all the words that we use to really describe the psychic experience. Odd, weird, and crazy. By the way, weird is a godly word. The weirding way has to do with being in tune with God. With the weirding way also has to do with being a witch, which a witch is actually someone who is in tune with the rhythms of nature and the elements and is able to receive messages from nature and spirit. So that's what a witch actually is, not some evil doer that is with one warty nose and flying on broomsticks through the sky. Even though I could totally be down with a broomstick, but that's not the point. So back to the spirit animal thing, right? So you can have a large amount of spirit animals, but they'll usually present themselves to you at different moments in order to spark more research for you to go deeper. Okay, so I guess 2 years ago, I was stung by a wasp for the first time in my 37 years of my life. Prior to that time, I used to be the one that people would call to kill wasps. And I got stung. And then I found out I was allergic. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And so I did some research and I found out that there is a spirit animal totem for the wasp that actually deals with feminine warriors and uniting the hive. And I was like, oh. And then subsequently, maybe 2 weeks later, I got bit by a bee. So weird. Like, I got stung by a bee. So I was like, what is going on with all these flying insects all of a sudden attacking me? Like, spirit, what are you trying to tell me? And so I did my research, because I'll just get up and Google things. I'll be like, oh, all right. And I'll read 3 or 4 different versions of something that I Google, and then Spirit will have me just pause on the thing that makes sense to me, that resonates, right? So we've talked about resonance before. Resonance is usually a feeling of comprehension, knowing, sometimes goosebumps, that tells you that you're on the right track, that tells you that, yes, your spirit recognizes this and this is in alignment with what you need to know, right? So when you're dealing with spirit animals, and when you're dealing with totems, and when you're dealing with oddities in your life, it's a good idea to research them, because nothing is a coincidence. So if you understand that nothing is a coincidence, then you start to build your life from the perspective of all of these bad things happening to you as clues to unlocking your potential. That's how I look at everything. Everything in my life is a clue to unlock my potential and make me 10 times, 1,000 times better than what I was. Even my car accident. My car accident was singularly the most devastating thing that happened to me physically, but was the epitome of the beginning of my rise, my extreme expansion into an even more spiritually focused and aware individual. Without that accident, I honestly do not believe that I would be on this podcast speaking to you. Because I could not afford, at the time of the accident, to get the life coach, to be able to learn the law of attraction, to be able to evidence and manifest the change that I needed. And without law of attraction, without Reiki, I would still be injured. I would still be going to the doctor all the time. They would be filling me full of pills that weren't working, and I'd be probably addicted to opioids right now, truthfully, because I had so much pain. Like, when I think back to the level of pain that I lived in, to the lack of pain that I'm in now, it's just astronomical. It's absolutely night and day. I'm not even that person anymore. My actual scans, even my bone scans and like my MRIs, they've even changed. Initially, with my car accident, I had my my L5 vertebrae was so dislocated. It was shifted to within like 5 or it was shifted to within, like, I don't know, maybe a couple inches of my left ovary. Like, it was way out of whack. And that was, oh my God, that was so painful, because for my body to fix it, I had to have extremely bad menstrual cramps to pull my spine back into alignment and away from my ovary for 2 years. I had the most excruciating menstrual cramps. I don't even know. So let's get off that subject, because that's just a bunch of painful topics, and I'm not in pain right now, so I don't want to go and dwell on that. But I want you to understand that I did dwell in my darkness for an extended period of time, and shone light there in the darkness in an effort to heal myself and come out of a very dark night of the soul, and dark night of the body, and dark night of every damn thing. It was horrible. And what's worse is that happened 4 years after the beginning of my spiritual awakening, when I lost everything. Like, I lost my house, my car, my daughter, everything at the beginning of my spiritual awakening. So to come full circle at the end of that, an 8-year cycle that I've been in, where now I'm married to someone that I love very much and who loves me very much, takes really good care of me. My child has come back from the trauma of the awakening and the split from her dad. Like, she is now evidencing her own Kundalini rising, and her third eye is opening, and she's having a lot of intuitive visions, which are amazing, like so vivid. And now I'm doing this spiritual podcast to help those of you who are waking up and are on your path and are starting to expand, to learn how to go, to learn how to be, to learn to let go of what you think you need to do. There's no right or wrong here, guys and gals. There's no right or wrong. There only is. Are you doing what is in alignment with who you are, or are you fighting it? I ask you today to not to fight your alignment. I ask you to ask for clarity. I ask you to ask for truth, and I ask you to act on your intuitive impulses. Don't believe the hype, don't miss the message, and don't give up on yourself, because you are loved, you are supported, and you are a valuable piece of the universe, regardless of how old or young you are. What you are contributing, no matter what it is that you're doing, even if you think you're just contributing sorrow and bullshit, like, you're still contributing. It takes everybody's life to create balance and order and harmony, from the most horrible pedophile to the most saintly whatever, pope or angel or whatever. You know, like, we need both, guys. We need both. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to accept, because we're so used to being stuck in this duality concept of them bad, me good, you good, I'm bad. There's no such thing as good and bad, guys. There just is experiences. And based on what you experience, and based on what you've experienced and what you do to others, you will then reap the benefits or the downside, the downfall of your actions, you know? Definitely. That's what I believe. And you don't have to believe that either. You know, this podcast is not about forcing beliefs on anybody, because that's a waste of time. I can't save you, and I can't make you believe anything. And I can't force you to listen to your spirit guides. I can't force you to take action. I can't do anything. But what I can do is be an open channel and share this message with you. What I can do is I can keep loving you from afar. What I can do is I can hold space for your healing. I can hold space for you to be the best possible version of you. And what I can do is continue to strengthen the foundation of what I'm doing and help others to soar. And I think that is a great way to bring this podcast to an end today, guys. I just have so much love for you and so much hope for your ability to rise up from the ashes of your trauma and your pain and your hurt. I have so much hope that you are not going to ignore yourself. That I have so much hope that you're going to take the opportunity to really just believe in yourself, believe in your spirit guides, and do the work. Because we are going into a time span where we will see things we've never seen before. We already have, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Ladies and gentlemen, just the tip of the iceberg, what you're seeing right now. And if you're scared now, baby, I need you to get over it and choose love so that you can make it through the rest of this. Because the fear mongering is going to keep you small, and it's going to keep you hurt, and it's going to keep you in pain and in sorrow and in rage. And that's not where you are meant to be. You're meant to be in light and love. Even shadow light. Like, people are like, oh, I can't be in the darkness. No. The shadow side also requires light. Like, you can't have shadows without light, guys. We need both. This is about balance and harmony. This is about balancing the divine masculine and the divine feminine and uniting our inner landscape so that our outer landscape reflects the manifestations of our balance. It's about all of us doing that inner work so that our outer world will look different. Okay? That's why it's so important for people to wake up, because if you heal yourself, you heal the world. The more healed individuals there are gathered together in one place, the better the vibration, right? Right. So, on that note, I'm going to leave you with a Scorpio full moon blessing to let you know how much you are loved, how much the universe wants you to know who you truly are and to step into your power. And don't miss the messages, guys. The universe is constantly bombarding you with messages. Everybody has been seeing the 1111 messages and 222 messages and 333 messages. Okay, guys, pay attention to your numerology messages. Those are activation codes for you and your expansion. Pay attention to them, research them, write them down. Recognize that spirit is attempting to communicate with you. And in that, you will expand your intuition and start to flex that muscle. Thank you so much for joining me again this week on Gaia Soars. I really appreciate you guys. I love you so very much. Get ready for this Venus retrograde coming in next week. Happy Mother's Day to all of you moms. Happy Mother's Day to Gaia herself. Happy Earth Day. Happy joy. Happy joy, happy joy for you Ren and Stimpy fans out there. I just love you so much. Blessings, light, and love to you on your path and your journey this week. And I will see you again next week on Tuesday at 10 a.m. for another awesome episode of Gaia Soars. My name is Kimra Minuti, and you have a wonderful day.